Counselor Vexthani walked through the grand halls of the Galactic Council Station. Her blue skin shimmered under the artificial lights as she made her way to the meeting chamber. Something felt different today, but she could not say what it was. The chamber was large enough to hold representatives from 47 different species. Each delegation had their own section with special air, gravity, and temperature controls. The crystalline beings needed cold temperatures. The gas-formed nebulans required thick methane clouds. The massive builders needed strong gravity to keep their rocky bodies stable. Vexthani took her place in the Zephyrian section. She looked around the chamber as other delegates arrived. The usual sounds filled the air. Clicking from the insect collective, musical tones from the harmonists, and deep rumbles from the stone giants. But something was missing. She looked toward the human section. The seats were empty. Again, Vexthani tried to remember the last time she had seen Ambassador Martinez or Dr. Williams. It had been weeks, maybe longer. The humans had not attended the last 2 council meetings either. Where are the humans? Asked Counselor Kretok from the Hegemony delegation. His red eyes glowed with suspicion. This is the 3rd time they have missed our meetings. Maybe they are busy, said Dr. Youthmora from the crystalline section. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. Humans are always working on many projects at once. Vexthani nodded, but she still felt worried. Humans were never completely absent from anything. They always sent someone, even if their main delegates were busy. They had done this for the past 200 years since joining the galactic community. The meeting began without the human delegation. They discussed trade routes, mineral rights, and scientific research projects. Everything seemed normal, but Vexthani noticed small problems. When the insect collective and the plant confederation disagreed about farming rights, no one stepped forward to help them understand each other. Usually, a human delegate would explain each side's point of view until they found common ground. When the military discussed border patrol schedules, gaps appeared in the coverage. Vexthani realized that human peacekeeping ships were supposed to cover those areas. After the meeting, she decided to investigate. She contacted the human embassy on the station. No one answered her calls. She went to their offices in person. The doors were locked and the lights were off. Strange, she said to herself. Over the next few days, Vexthani asked other delegates about their interactions with humans. The answers worried her more. My trade ship was supposed to meet a human cargo vessel 3 days ago, said Captain Fricks from the Merchant Guild. They never showed up. No message, no explanation. Our joint research project stopped suddenly, reported Dr. Zelwyn. The human scientists just stopped sending data. We cannot continue without their part of the work. Human colony ships have stopped requesting supplies, added Supply Chief Morndal. They always needed food shipments and equipment. Now they do not answer our communications. Vexthani gathered more reports. Everywhere she looked, humans were disappearing from galactic activities. They had not made any announcements. They had not sent angry messages or declared war on anyone. They had simply stopped participating. She brought her findings to the next council session. This time, more delegates noticed the empty human seats. Perhaps they are planning something, suggested Admiral Zorkith from the military command. Humans are unpredictable. They might be building weapons or preparing an attack. That does not make sense, argued Dr. Yithmora. Humans have always been peaceful. They solve problems with words, not weapons. Maybe they found something better than our council, said Merchant Captain Volter. They are always exploring new areas of space. Kretok slammed his fist on his desk. Whatever they are doing, it is disrespectful. We welcomed them into our galactic community. We taught them how to travel between stars. We shared our knowledge and technology. Now they abandon us without explanation. But Vexthani remembered things differently. The humans had not just received help, they had given it too. They had solved conflicts between species that had fought for centuries. They had made trade agreements work between peoples who could barely understand each other. They had found patterns and connections that older, more advanced species had misthought. She thought about the human phrase, thinking outside the box. Other species had laughed at this expression, but humans used it to solve problems that seemed impossible. A month passed with no word from any human anywhere in the galaxy. Reports kept coming in. Human mining operations had shut down overnight, leaving valuable resources untouched. Human hospitals on mixed-species worlds had closed, leaving other species to care for patients they did not understand. Human schools that taught young aliens about different cultures had gone dark. The most troubling reports came from the frontier worlds. Human explorers had been mapping dangerous regions of space and had warned other species about various threats. Now those warnings had stopped coming. What if they found something terrible out there? Vexthani asked during a private meeting with other concerned delegates. What if they are running from something we do not know about? Running where? Asked Dr. Yuthmora. There are human settlements throughout the galaxy. You cannot hide entire populations. But even as she said this, the crystalline scientist looked uncertain. Reports suggested that even the human homeworld, Earth, had gone silent. No ships arrived or departed. No communications came from the surface. Vexthani felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's air conditioning. In all her years of galactic service, she had never seen an entire species simply disappear. Wars happened. Diseases struck. Natural disasters destroyed worlds. But people did not just leave without saying anything. She looked at the empty human seats in the council chamber. For the first time, she wondered if the humans knew something the rest of the galaxy did not. Something important enough to make them abandon everything they had built among the stars. The thought scared her more than she wanted to admit. 3 months had passed since anyone had seen a human in council meetings. What started as a mystery had become a crisis that spread across the galaxy like cracks in breaking ice. The first major disaster struck the HFY, Outer Rim Mining Consortium. The operation was massive, involving 17 different species working together to extract rare minerals from asteroid fields. For 50 years, the consortium had been one of the galaxy's most successful joint ventures. Manager Grixtol received the emergency report on his desk. Production had dropped by 60% in just 2 weeks. 3 mining teams had gotten into violent fights. 2 species had pulled their workers out completely, claiming the others were trying to cheat them. What happened? Grixtol asked his assistant. The human coordinators left, sir, the assistant replied. Without them, the teams cannot understand each other's work methods. Grixtol had never thought much about the humans who worked at the consortium. They had seemed like simple translators and paperwork handlers. Now he realized they had been doing much more than that. The insect collective worked in perfect harmony, with thousands of individuals acting as one mind. The stone giants worked slowly and carefully, taking time to make sure everything was perfect. The fast builders worked quickly, finishing tasks in minutes that took others hours. These different approaches had caused problems before humans arrived. The insects thought the stone giants were lazy. The stone giants thought the fast builders were careless. The fast builders thought the insects were creepy and strange. But somehow, the humans had made it all work. They had helped each species understand why the others worked differently. They had created schedules that let each group work in their own way while still achieving shared goals. Without humans, the old conflicts returned. Worse than before, Dr. Yuthmora faced similar problems in her research laboratory. Her team studied quantum crystals that could revolutionize energy storage. Scientists from 8 species worked together, each bringing their own knowledge and methods. The project had been making amazing progress. New discoveries happened every week. But since the humans stopped participating, everything had slowed down. "I do not understand," Dr. Ythmora said to her Ziphian colleague, Dr. Nexwin. "We have all the same equipment. We have all the same data. Why can we not continue our work?" Dr. Nexwin floated in his containment field, his energy form flickering with uncertainty. "I think the humans did something we did not notice. They connected our different ways of thinking." Dr. Ythmora reviewed the research logs. She found that humans had been asking strange questions during their meetings. Questions that seemed unimportant at the time. Why do the crystallines always test their theories in cold conditions? A human scientist had asked months ago. "Because crystal formations work better in low temperatures," Dr. Ythmora had answered. "This is obvious. But what if we combine that with how the heat dancers study energy movement in high temperatures?" The human had continued. Dr. Ythmora had thought the question was silly. Heat and cold were opposites. How could they learn from each other? But the human had been right. By combining cold crystal research with hot energy research, they had discovered new properties that neither group could find alone. The humans had somehow seen connections that escaped more advanced minds. Now, without human questions and suggestions, each species worked in isolation. They made small progress, but the big breakthroughs had stopped. The problems spread throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Trade Federation reported massive disruptions in commerce. Trade routes that had worked perfectly for decades suddenly fell apart. Captain Volter brought his concerns to the emergency council session. "My people cannot trade with the Metal Eaters anymore. We cannot agree on payment methods. The humans used to help us work out these details. The same thing is happening everywhere," added Merchant Chief Colvin. "Species that have traded together for years are now arguing about everything. Prices, delivery times, quality standards. Without humans to explain each side's customs, nobody trusts anybody." The numbers were frightening. Trade between species had dropped by 40%. Some trade routes had stopped completely. Entire sectors of the galactic economy were failing, but the worst problems were appearing along the borders between different territories. Admiral Zorkith delivered the military report with grim efficiency. "Border conflicts have increased by 300%, he announced. "Small disputes are becoming major incidents. We have had more military alerts in 3 months than in the previous 3 years." Vexthani felt her stomach tighten. "What kind of incidents?" "Resource disputes, territory claims, navigation rights," Admiral Zorkith replied. "The kind of problems that human peacekeepers used to solve before they became serious." She remembered how human peace missions worked. They did not just enforce agreements between angry species. They helped each side understand what the other side really wanted. They found solutions that satisfied everyone, even when the solutions seemed impossible. "The Claw Empire and the Shell Federation almost went to war last week," Admiral Zorkith continued. "They both claimed the same solar system. In the past, human mediators would have helped them find a compromise. Now, both sides are building warships. More reports came in every day. Scientific collaborations were breaking down. Cultural exchange programs had ended. Even the Galactic Communication Network was having problems, as different species argued about technical standards and protocols. Vexthani spent her evenings reading old reports and records, trying to understand what was happening. She found patterns that disturbed her. Every successful galactic institution had human involvement. Every peaceful solution to major conflicts had human input. Every breakthrough in interspecies cooperation had human fingerprints all over it. The humans had been more than participants in galactic civilization. They had been the glue holding it together. She found a comment in a research paper from 5 years ago. A human anthropologist had written, "The great challenge of galactic civilization is not technological or economic. It is cognitive. Different species literally think in different ways. Without bridges between these different types of thinking, cooperation becomes impossible." At the time, other scientists had dismissed this as human oversimplification. Now, as Vexthani watched galactic civilization cracking apart, she wondered if the humans had understood something that everyone else had missed. The next morning brought news that made her fears real. The first interspecies war in 300 years had begun. The hegemony had attacked a consortium mining station, claiming the consortium had violated their territory. Both sides called their allies. Ancient hatreds, buried for centuries under human-mediated peace agreements, rose to the surface again. As Vexthani watched the war reports, she realized the truth. The humans had not just left the galactic community. They had taken the galactic community's ability to exist with them. 6 months after the humans disappeared, the galaxy was falling apart. The war between the hegemony and the consortium had spread to 4 star systems. Ancient alliances were breaking. Species that had been friends for centuries now viewed each other with suspicion. Vexthani sat in the emergency council session, watching delegates argue with increasing anger. Without human mediators, every disagreement became a battle. Every misunderstanding became an insult. "This is all the consortium's fault," shouted Kretok from the hegemony delegation. His red skin glowed brighter with rage. "They drove away the humans to weaken our alliances." "Lies," roared Chief Engineer Morduk from the consortium. "The hegemony made secret deals with the humans. That is why they left, to avoid helping the rest of us." "Both of you are wrong," declared Admiral Zorkith. "The humans left because they were planning to attack us all? This chaos is their goal." Vexthani listened to the accusations fly back and forth. None of it made sense. She had worked with humans for decades. They were not conquerors or schemers. They were problem solvers who genuinely wanted peace. Dr. Ythmora stood up in her crystal formation. "We are wasting time with blame. We need to find out where the humans went and why they left." "What does it matter?" asked Captain Volter. "They are gone. We must deal with our problems without them." But Vexthani had been investigating for months. She had found disturbing patterns in old human communications and reports. She stood up and activated the main display screen. "I have discovered something important," she announced. "I believe I know why the humans left." The arguing stopped. All eyes turned to her. She displayed a series of reports dating back 5 years. The humans tried to warn us about something. They called it the convergence. Look at these documents. The first report showed human scientists detecting unusual energy readings from deep space. The second report described strange gravitational waves that did not match any known phenomena. The third report documented communication disruptions in distant star systems. The humans brought these findings to the Council repeatedly, Vexthani continued. They said these events were connected. They claimed something dangerous was approaching our galaxy. She remembered those presentations now. Human scientists had stood at this very podium, showing data and charts, trying to explain their concerns. Most delegates had ignored them. Some had openly left. Dr. Ythmora's crystal form brightened with understanding. "I remember those reports. The humans said they could see patterns that we missed. We dismissed them," admitted Dr. Nex Win from the Zephyrian delegation. "Their science seemed primitive compared to ours. How could they see dangers that our advanced sensors could not detect?" Vexthani displayed more documents. The humans called for joint research projects to study the convergence. They asked for emergency funding to build early warning systems. They requested permission to send deep space exploration missions to investigate the source. She paused, letting the implications sink in. Every request was denied. Every warning was ignored. The council voted to focus on practical matters instead of human paranoia. Admiral Zorkith crossed his arms. "So you think they left because we hurt their feelings?" "No," Vexthani replied. "I think they left because they knew what was coming, and they realized we would not listen or help prepare for it." She displayed the final set of documents, classified files that had taken months to access. 3 weeks before the humans disappeared, their deep space monitoring stations detected massive energy surges heading toward our galaxy. The readings matched their predictions about the convergence exactly. The chamber fell silent. Delegates stared at the data with growing alarm. According to these files, the humans had been preparing evacuation plans for years, Vexthani continued. Not just for themselves, but for the entire galactic community. They tried to warn us so we could all prepare together. Chief Engineer Morta leaned forward. Evacuation plans? Where would an entire galaxy evacuate to? The Andromeda Galaxy, Vexthani answered. Human exploration ships had been secretly mapping safe routes and habitable systems there. They were building a backup civilization in case the convergence destroyed everything here. Dr. Yithmora processed this information with crystalline logic. If this is true, then the humans did not abandon us. They tried to save us, and when we refused to listen, they saved themselves. Kretok slammed his fist on his desk. This proves nothing. These could be fake documents. Human lies designed to make us doubt ourselves. But Admiral Zorkith looked troubled. I have been reviewing military reports. There have been strange incidents at our outer monitoring posts. Sensor failures, communication blackouts, gravitational anomalies. I thought they were equipment problems. When did these incidents begin? Asked Vexthani. About 4 months ago, Admiral Zorkith replied. 2 months after the humans left. Dr. Nexwin energy form flickered with worry. If the convergence is real, and if it is as dangerous as the humans claimed, then we are in terrible danger. Even if we wanted to follow the humans to Andromeda, we could not, said Captain Volta. We do not have their navigation data or evacuation plans. Vexthani felt the weight of the galaxy's fate pressing down on her. I believe the humans hoped we would come to our senses and ask for their help. But we were too proud to admit they might be right. The debate that followed was fierce. Some delegates still refused to believe the humans had been right. Others demanded immediate action to investigate the convergence. A few suggested trying to contact the humans and ask for help, but the council was too divided to make any decisions. Species that had worked together for centuries could no longer trust each other. The hegemony accused the consortium of hiding information. The consortium accused the military of planning a takeover. The scientists accused everyone of ignoring facts. As the session ended with no resolution, Vexthani realized that the galactic community had lost more than just human presence. It had lost its ability to function as a united civilization. That night, she received a priority message from the Outer Rim. Another monitoring station had gone silent. The energy readings from deep space were getting stronger. The convergence was coming, just as the humans had warned. And the galaxy was completely unprepared for it. Vexthani stared out at the stars, wondering if somewhere in Andromeda, the humans were looking back at the home they had tried to save. She wondered if there was still time to reach them. She wondered if they would still want to help after being abandoned by the people they had tried to warn. The war continued to spread. The council remained divided, and the convergence grew closer every day. The first sign came at dawn on a Tuesday, Galactic Standard Time. Every faster-than-light communication relay across 3 sectors went silent at the exact same moment. Vexthani was drinking her morning nutrition fluid when her emergency communicator started screaming warnings. She rushed to the council communication center, where technicians from 6 different species were working frantically at their stations. "What is happening?" she demanded. Chief Technician Bilmer looked up from his displays with frightened eyes. "The FTL network is collapsing. We are losing contact with entire star systems." On the main screen, a map of the galaxy showed thousands of communication points. As Vexthani watched, more and more points winked out like dying stars. Whole sectors went dark in seconds. "Is it an attack?" asked Admiral Zorkith, who had arrived running. "No, sir," replied the technician. "The signals are not being blocked or jammed. The relays themselves are failing. Something is interfering with the quantum fields that make FTL communication possible." Dr. Yithmora entered the center, her crystal form glowing with urgency. "I have been monitoring the deep space sensors. There is a massive wave of dark energy approaching our galaxy. It is unlike anything in our scientific records." Vexthani felt ice in her stomach. "How long until it reaches us?" "It is already here," Dr. Yithmora replied grimly. "The edge of the wave hit our outer territories 6 hours ago. That is why the communication relays are failing. The implications hit everyone at once. The Galactic civilization depended completely on instant communication between star systems. Without it, the thousands of worlds that made up their community would become isolated islands in space." Admiral Zorkith activated his military channels, but half of them were already dead. "I'm losing contact with entire fleets. Border defense systems are going offline. The trade networks are collapsing," reported Captain Volter over a crackling communication link. "Cargo ships cannot navigate safely without FTL guidance systems." As the hours passed, the situation grew worse. The dark energy wave, exactly as the humans had predicted, was disrupting more than just communications. It was interfering with the fundamental physics that made galactic civilization possible. Faster-than-light travel became unreliable, then dangerous, then impossible. Ships that tried to enter FTL found themselves thrown off course by millions of kilometers. Some ships disappeared completely, lost in the distorted space between stars. The carefully maintained trade routes that connected distant worlds became death traps. Merchant vessels loaded with food and supplies found themselves stranded between star systems, unable to reach their destinations. Vexthani coordinated the emergency response from the Council Station, but her options grew more limited each hour. Without FTL communication, she could not contact most of the galaxy. Without FTL travel, she could not send help to systems in crisis. "We need to focus on immediate survival," Admiral Zorkith announced during an emergency meeting. "Each system must defend itself until we can restore communications." But Dr. Yithmora had been studying the wave's properties. This energy disturbance will last for years, possibly decades. The quantum fields need time to stabilize after this level of disruption. The realization was devastating. Their galactic civilization, built over millennia, was dissolving overnight. Different species began responding according to their natures. But without human mediators to coordinate their efforts, their responses made everything worse. The hegemony declared martial law throughout their territory. They pulled back their military forces to protect their core worlds, abandoning mixed-species colonies and trade stations. Their response was to become a fortress, protecting their own at the expense of everyone else. The consortium tried to maintain their industrial operations, but without raw materials from distant worlds, their manufacturing systems began shutting down. They sent desperate messages demanding that other species fulfill their trade contracts, not understanding that those species were facing their own survival crises. The Crystalline Confederacy retreated into pure research, trying to find scientific solutions to the dark energy problem. They stopped all communication with other species, focusing entirely on their calculations and experiments. The Zephyrian Alliance attempted to transcend the physical crisis by entering collective meditation states. They believed they could mentally overcome the energy disruption, but their withdrawal from practical matters left their worlds without leadership during the emergency. Each response made sense from each species' point of view, but together they created chaos instead of cooperation. Vexthani watched her communication displays go dark one by one. The Great Council Station that had been the heart of galactic government for 600 years was becoming just another isolated outpost. "We need to work together," she pleaded. During the last multi-species meeting before communications failed completely. "This crisis affects all of us. The hegemony takes care of its own," declared Kretok. "Others must do the same. The consortium honors its contracts," stated Chief Engineer Mordekak. "But we cannot deliver goods without transportation." "Science will find the answer," insisted Dr. Ithmora. "But we need time to work without distractions." Vexthani realized that without humans to help them understand each other, the different species were becoming more alien to each other than ever before. Their natural differences, which humans had helped them see as strengths, now seemed like unbridgeable gaps. The war between the hegemony and consortium continued even as both sides struggled with the energy crisis. Neither side was willing to admit that their conflict was now meaningless compared to the larger disaster. Border worlds found themselves completely abandoned as central governments focused on their core territories. Mixed species colonies, once symbols of galactic unity, dissolved as different groups fled to their homeworlds. The worst affected were the young species that had joined galactic civilization recently. They had depended on guidance from older, more experienced peoples. Now, with communications cut and experienced species focused on their own survival, these young civilizations were left to face an unprecedented crisis alone. Food shipments stopped. Medical supplies ran out. Educational exchange programs ended. Cultural festivals were canceled. The thousands of small connections that had made galactic civilization feel like one great community snapped one by one. On the council station, Vexthani found herself commanding a dying government. Most delegates had returned to their homeworlds while travel was still possible. Those who remained could only watch helplessly as their civilization collapsed around them. She spent her nights reading the human files about the convergence. The humans had predicted everything: the communication failures, the FTL disruptions, the social collapse that would follow. They had even predicted how different species would respond to the crisis. More importantly, they had developed plans to minimize the damage, plans for emergency cooperation protocols, plans for maintaining critical supply lines using slower than light transport, plans for keeping mixed species communities together during the crisis. All of those plans required the one thing the galaxy now lacked: the ability to make different species work together when their natural instincts told them to retreat into isolation. As Vexthani read the final human report about the convergence, she found a message addressed to the Galactic Council. "If you are reading this, then the convergence has arrived, and our warnings were proven correct. We hope you have found better solutions than evacuation. If not, and if you truly want our help, find a way to contact us in Andromeda. We will be waiting." Vexthani looked out at the stars, now more distant than they had been for thousands of years. Somewhere among them was a way to reach the humans who had tried to save them all. But with galactic civilization crumbling around her, she wondered if it was already too late. Vexthani worked alone in the abandoned council station. Most of the staff had fled to their homeworlds weeks ago. The great halls that once echoed with 47 different languages now held only silence and the hum of life. Support systems. She had spent 3 months rebuilding the old deep space communication array. The equipment was ancient, designed before FTL communication existed. It was slow, unreliable, and required enormous amounts of power. But it was the only technology that could work through the dark energy that surrounded their galaxy. The signal would take months to reach Andromeda. If the humans were still there, if they were still listening, if they cared enough to respond. Vexthani had recorded her message dozens of times, each version different. Some were formal diplomatic requests. Others were personal pleas. Finally, she settled on simple honesty. This is Counselor Vexthani of the Galactic Council, transmitting to any human settlements in the Andromeda Galaxy. The convergence has arrived as you predicted. Our civilization is collapsing. We were wrong to ignore your warnings. We need your help. She sent the message into the dark space between galaxies and began the long wait for a response. During those months, she watched the reports that still trickled in from nearby systems. The galaxy was dying, not from war or disease, but from loneliness. Species that had worked together for centuries could no longer communicate or cooperate. The hegemony had become a closed military state, viewing all outsiders as threats. The consortium had devolved into competing corporate factions, fighting over the few resources they could still access. The Crystalline Confederacy had retreated so far into research that they no longer responded to outside contact at all. Entire sectors had gone dark. Not destroyed, but simply isolated and forgotten. The few mixed species communities that survived were struggling desperately. Without the cultural bridges that humans had built, different peoples found it almost impossible to understand each other's needs and perspectives. 6 months after sending her message, Vexthani received a response. The signal was clear and strong, transmitted with technology far more advanced than anything the galaxy had possessed before the convergence. When she decoded it, she found a video message from a human woman in a military uniform. Counselor Vexthani, this is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Human Colonial Fleet. We received your message and appreciate your honesty about the situation. Admiral Chun looked older than the humans Vexthani remembered, but her eyes held the same patient intelligence that had characterized human diplomats. We are sorry that the convergence caused so much suffering. We tried to warn the Council so that everyone could prepare together. We hoped our predictions were wrong, but we had to plan for the worst. The message continued, and Vexthani felt a mixture of hope and shame as Admiral Chun spoke. Humanity has established 12 colonies in Andromeda. We have developed new technologies that work despite the dark energy effects. We have also rescued several species that accepted our evacuation offers before the convergence arrived. Vexthani paused the message. She had not known that some species had left with the humans. She wondered who had been wise enough to trust human warnings. We can return to help rebuild galactic civilization, Admiral Chun continued. But we learned painful lessons from our time in your council. We cannot be effective partners if we are seen as junior members or useful tools. Our cognitive gifts work best when we are trusted as equals. The Admiral leaned forward, her expression becoming more serious. If you truly want our help, the galactic community must change how it operates. No more dismissing ideas because they come from primitive species. No more assuming that older civilizations are automatically wiser. No more using cultural differences as excuses for discrimination. Vexthani felt the weight of those words. The humans were not asking for apologies or reparations. They were asking for fundamental respect. We propose a new type of galactic government, Admiral Chun explained. One based on cognitive diversity rather than technological advancement. One where every species' way of thinking is valued, regardless of their age or development level. The message included detailed plans for rebuilding communication networks using hybrid human-alien technology. Plans for new trade systems that could work within the dark energy environment. Plans for cultural exchange. Programs that would help different species truly understand each other. But all the plans came with the same requirement: genuine equality and respect for human perspectives. We will monitor this frequency for your response, Admiral Chun concluded. But understand that we will only help if the galaxy is ready to change. We will not return to be useful assistants in someone else's civilization. We will only return as equal partners in building something better together. Vexthani immediately began contacting the surviving governments throughout the galaxy. It took weeks to reach them all using the slow communication methods still available. The responses revealed how deeply the crisis had divided galactic civilization. Kretok of the hegemony was suspicious and angry. This could be a human trick to gain power over us. Why should we trust them after they abandoned us? Dr. Yithmora was more thoughtful. The humans were right about the convergence. Perhaps they are right about other things too. But changing our entire governmental system seems extreme. Chief Engineer Morduk was practical. My people need the human technology to survive. We will accept their conditions if necessary. Some species flatly refused the human terms. They preferred isolation to admitting they had been wrong. Others were willing to try anything to restore their former prosperity. The debate continued for months as more reports came in about failing colonies and dying trade networks. The price of pride was becoming impossible to ignore. Finally, Vexthani called for a vote among all reachable governments. The question was simple: accept human partnership as equals or continue trying to survive alone. The result was close. 26 species voted to accept the human terms. 18 voted to refuse. 3 abstained. It was enough. Barely. Vexthani sent the response to Andromeda. Admiral Chun, we accept your terms. Please come home. The humans arrived 8 months later in ships unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Their vessels moved easily through the dark energy fields that still paralyzed other spacecraft. Their crews included not just humans, but members of the species that had evacuated, with them all working together as genuine equals. Admiral Chun met with the surviving council delegates in person. She was accompanied by representatives from every species in their new alliance, including some that Vexthani did not recognize. We have learned much in Andromeda, Admiral Chun said, about cooperation, about respect, about the strength that comes from true diversity. We are ready to share those lessons, but only if you are ready to learn. The reconstruction began slowly. The humans shared their technology freely, but they insisted on new ways of making decisions. Every proposal had to be reviewed by mixed teams that included different ways of thinking. No species could dominate discussions. Every perspective had to be heard. Some of the old species found this frustrating. They were used to their opinions carrying more weight because of their age and experience. But those who adapted quickly discovered something surprising. The new system produced better solutions than they had ever achieved before. The new Galactic Charter was written in a hybrid language that required input from multiple species to understand fully. No single perspective could interpret it completely, ensuring that cooperation would always be necessary. Not every species joined the new alliance. Some, like the hegemony, chose to remain isolated rather than accept human equality. They established their own smaller territories, trade networks, and governments. But those who embraced the human partnership found themselves part of something stronger and more innovative than the old Galactic Council had ever been. Vexthani served as the first director of cultural integration in the new government. She often thought about the choices that had led to this moment. If the galaxy had listened to human warnings about the convergence, much suffering could have been avoided. But perhaps they had needed to lose everything to understand what they had been missing. The humans had never wanted to rule the galaxy. They had only wanted to help it reach its full potential. Now, finally, That potential was being realized as she watched mixed-species crews work together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Vexthani felt something she had not experienced since before the convergence. Hope for the future. The galaxy had been broken and rebuilt. This time, it was built to last.